What is the best class in all of Diablo 4? Well, we have a take on that. We're going to be talking about the Rogue today, ladies and gentlemen, and why you might want to be starting as the Rogue. And today we have Velchot on, who has experienced the Rogue more or less in its entirety. We can't really talk about the stuff that is still NDA'd. That's on the 30th, but we are instead going to be talking about a leveling sort of breakdown, what legendary aspects to use when leveling. All of these can be acquired fairly early in the game. They're all just from dungeons, which is part of the reason we're going to be talking about why the Rogue is so good today. How are you doing today, Vale?
Good. A little sad. We can't play the game anymore, but we get to provide great content for you all. So here we go.
So the first question I have for you is right off the bat, do you think the Rogue's the best class? Like from the beginning, day one, is it the best day one class? Let's ask it that way.
Here's what I'll say. If you're racing to 100, or if you care about like getting that early start, I played every class all the way twice, all 25 and then all 20. Rogue was the fastest out of any class in any of the betas to get to those levels, just because of how much mobility and damage they got. You got to play Rogue.
So you got to play Rogue, heard from the man stuff. So we're going to talk about a couple reasons why. First and foremost, it has to do with, from what I understand, the twisting blades, correct? And the legendary aspect that you can get sort of right in the beginning of the game?
Yeah, so if you're going to play a ranged rogue, you should just play a different class, because they're just worse than sorcerers, man, or necro. Jokes aside, you can play your ranged rogue, but you're not going to feel why the rogue is so powerful. Flurry is good. Yeah, sure. Not Twisting Blades, though. Twisting Blades is the reason why we're able to go so fast. The main reason, as you say, is that Blade Dancer's aspect in combination with it. And there's actually a mechanic that a lot of people don't consider. And that is that when you have the Blade Dancer's aspect and it spins around you, if you had it imbued by the poison, it also applies poison on an AoE around you. That kind of three-piece combo makes it absolutely ridiculous for basically clearing, boss killing, or anything.
So do you have are there any weak points you feel about at the start of the game when you're kind of starting with the Rogue? Do you feel weak at any bit, or is it like pretty much from the jump you're already blasting?
Pretty much you one-shot things with Twisting Blades, so you're not going to feel that. And then as soon as you hit like level 10, you get your first mobility skill and you're already blasting. Because a lot of people don't realize this, but or don't play like this. But if you go ahead and you go and use your Twisting Blades and you dash behind something, we're running the one that reduces your cooldowns. And so even though it was nerfed, if you still hit multiple enemies, 12 to be exact, you're going to get the full duration of cooldown reduction. And this works on every skill. It's not just your mobility skills, right? So you're reducing your poison imbuement cooldown, you're reducing your mobility skill cooldown, you're reducing everything as you go through, as long as you're playing it properly. So your clear time, just because you can move quicker and dash over and over and over again, it's just absolutely disgusting. And I would argue, this is something that people don't talk about, that the Rogue has the best basic in the entire game. And the reason for that is...
Yeah, I'm curious about this. I want to hear this.
The reason for this is if you look at the skill looks trash, but you have to get the 2 enhancements for fundamental puncture. And this means that it shoots blades in a cone. And when you get that last enhancement, if you hit with 2 of the 3, you get a guaranteed vulnerable proc. What this means is if you're dashing on people, you have permanent vulnerability at any elite or boss. Anytime you want it, you get vulnerability. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
So you're telling me the Rogue gets permanent vulnerability on boss, you get poison in AoE for trash mobs. And again, we're talking about to be clear, we're talking about a build for the start of the game. Like this isn't an in-game build. Man. We're talking like all the beta type of stuff. You can effectively do this, and everything has extreme synergy. So can you walk me through what are the other legendary aspects? And are all of these, like the primary one you're talking about here is this one, Blade Dancer's aspect you get from a dungeon. And this is like the real kind of engine behind it. But are these other aspects all fairly early game aspects too? I mean, at what level can you get all of the pieces for this early game build?
Well, this Kyrgyzstan one, I believe that is Act 4, although I'm not 100% certain. And then Dry Steps, that looks to be like Act 3 based on what we've seen in the beta. So they're going to be a little bit more out of your way. However, the Edge Masters aspect is in Skosglen, which is what we know to be Act 2. And this is what it gets really insane, because we're already good at clearing trash monsters because we just have high DPS, high base damages, right? We can pull the twisting blades through enemies. But where it gets really insane is bosses. And the reason for that is you're going to have to look at the specialization in conjunction with the Edge Masters aspect. So the specialization marks enemies, and when you hit that mark, you gain unlimited energy. However, when you're in a boss fight, there's only one thing to mark. So you build this almost instantaneously, you get unlimited energy, and then your Edge Masters aspect gives you guaranteed bonus damage, the maximum amount, because you have full energy all the time. So
I get it. Okay.
It's the dumbest thing ever.
And all of these are codex of power, so you're guaranteed to be able to get them. You actually rely on 0 legendary drops. And the thing about the game is, at least from what I've experienced, is if you're playing a slow class in the beginning, the progress that people next to you are going to be making is like this. Like, I'll be like, chugging along in the druid, and the rogues are just blasting through, killing everything. At some point, I'll ramp up at the end, but by then, the other classes, rogue in particular is the one we're talking about here, will be so far forward that it feels like there's a gap created. You know what I mean? If this was a quarter mile, I would have lost the race, and it's a good thing. Sometimes it's a marathon. So from what I've seen so far, the rogue, I was wondering why you would be so strong every time I would see you in game, and this is kind of answering the question. So do you think, for this reason, rogue is the best starting class in the whole game if you're trying to blast as fast as you can, as compared to, sorcerer, necromancer, etc.? Or do you think it's like there's still an argument for other ones, or it's just really hard to beat this for a good start?
Here's what I'll say. In any other ARPG that I've ever played, I'm not min-maxing my legendary items until I officially finish the leveling process, because you're constantly getting gear upgrades. So the fact that the rogue has a secondary weapon, this is something that a lot of people also don't talk about. We put our aspects on our ranged weapon, which we do not need to replace. We have our jewelry, which we don't really need to replace. And we have a build that relies on its base damage rather than the actual gear associated with it. When we start to dive into the Paragon system, immediate level 50, there's a glyph, which we don't know how difficult these are to obtain, but there's a couple of glyphs that just give you straight up 10% damage reduction, which is insane. And then when we talk about, okay, are you going to be able to go to 100 or whatever, there's a skill called Dark Shroud in the Rogue's kit, which gives you a total amount, if you have the proper legendary, of like 76 damage reduction. Now, you'll find that skill next to Concealment at about the 4th tier. And that skill is just absolutely disgusting, because the fact that you can reduce boss damage by just a straight up 70% on random hits or whatever is game changing. So all that to say, yeah, you might be able to catch up eventually, but I don't really think that any class is going to be able to catch up until we reach level 100, which is pretty insane to me.
So if it's the strongest to 100, then we're probably going to see a lot of rogues on that Lilith statue.
I would wager to say that you probably will see like at least 40 to 50% rogue on that statue at the end. That's my prediction. Come back and unsub from Darth's channel if I'm wrong.
There it is. You got it. Unsub from Vouch's channel if he's wrong, everybody. So thanks for coming on and explaining that. I have seen firsthand the rogue blowing past me when I was playing Druid, and I wanted to hear the explanation as to why. And I've heard a lot of people make the argument that the rogue is probably the best class, etc. So I'm glad to have it from somebody who has been experiencing it the most. So with that being said, guys, we're doing another video over on Vouch's channel talking about the Druid. So if you want to hear kind of a similar conversation about the Druid, we will have a link down below to Vouch's channel. Click on it. Go check the boy out. Thanks for coming on, Vouch, and we will see you all on the next one.